get your arms way up in a cast and set the hook on smallmouth bass, and then you'll understand. You gotta get your hands on a Shimano reel and a G-Loomis round. I bet you like what you feel. Step on the deck, give it a whirl. Hello, welcome to my world.
What's going on Facebook and YouTube Live? Welcome to another episode of On Another Line Live. My name is Tyler Waller. Man, we have a barn burner of an episode for you guys tonight. You guys know that I've been a Humminbird and Minn Kota guy from day one. Matter of fact, the intro song that you heard that I released 2 years ago, March, actually 2 years ago it's 2 years ago tomorrow, which is crazy. In the lyric there of my song, you hear me say, fire up the Humminbird to see what's around. That's how long I've been a Humminbird dude, long enough to write it in a song that I produced and released. So a couple of things before we get started. We have Bill Carson on the line. We're going to be joining us here in just a second. He's going to be asking or answering all of your questions coming from anything that you want to know about the Humminbird or Minn Kota line of products. Bill Carson is the field marketing manager for Johnson Outdoors, which is the company that owns those two and a few other companies as well. But we're going to do a deep dive into some of the stuff that the Humminbird and Minn Kota line has to offer. So if you're on the fence like I am on what product to buy, tonight is the chance for you to ask the questions and hopefully get an answer to them. The last thing I want to talk about before we bring Bill on here, I still have the giveaway going on for 5 days. There's some opportunities for you guys to go check that out. The link will be down in the post right below this. You still have 5 days. Go through there. There's a lot of different options for you to join that and win something totally free, no purchase necessary. So again, guys, without further ado, we have Bill Carson. Let's bring Bill on. Let's see here. Hey, Bill, can you hear me?
I sure can. How about you on that side? Can you hear me?
Absolutely. So, guys, this is Bill Carson, again, the field marketing manager for Johnson Outdoors. Bill, I'll give you a little opportunity to let the viewers know about yourself.
Well, I have been at Humminbird now for 9 years. Prior to that, I was a super pro staffer. Most importantly, I've been a fisherman since I was about 4 years old. I grew up on the lake. When corporal punishment was okay, I probably got more whippings with a switch by my mom because I wanted to catch one more fish when she came or called me to come eat. It's like I just wanted to catch one more fish. So it was for a good thing, right?
That's right. So a true fish head like myself. Bill and I were having a conversation before the show started about me breaking the ice of a farm pond to catch bluegill back when I was probably 8 to 10 years old. And we had a conversation again before the show that fishing is the ultimate sport in both of our opinions. It transcends a lot of things like he was talking about, socioeconomic statuses, race, where you live. It doesn't matter. If you like to fish, you like to fish. And it doesn't matter what you even like to fish for. We all know that passion that you have there. And technology as a whole is definitely a game changer when it comes to bass fishing, but not only bass fishing, but for every species. So I see a lot of people using the Humminbird technology for crappie fishing, and Bill uses it. He's mainly or fishes a lot for striped bass and things. So, it doesn't matter what you're fishing for or the equipment you're using. It's about catching the fish. But tonight we're going to talk about Humminbird products and what things that you need to look for in those lines of products to try to figure out what's best for you. So, Bill, the thing that I have trouble with understanding as far as with the Humminbird line of things is you guys now have the Helix, the Solix, and now the Apex. What's the other? So, can you give me some differences between the series there?
You mean other than just that one costs more than the other?
Yeah. Explain to me why they cost more. I guess that would be the deal.
Yeah, so first of all, I'm not an engineer. Like you said, I'm a fish head, and I have that reputation even inside the company because it's one thing to build a product, design a product, envision a product, manufacture it, and then sell it to the world, but not have someone that's a fish head to vet it. And by vetting it, I mean making sure that it really does it really does work, or that it does what it's intended to do from an engineering standpoint. And sometimes that means making some subtle changes to it with software. Maybe it's fixing something that it's doing, or something's interfering with it, or whatever, much like, what happens with your iPhone, or whatever the phone is that you happen, to utilize, and getting those softwares on for those devices to fix a problem or to add something else to it. I mean, think of what's happening whenever you update a software. Now you have something else on your Humminbird unit that you didn't have, and all the units out there are all really good. I happen to think that Humminbird is better, not just because I work for Johnson Outdoors and Humminbird, Minn Kota, and Canon, but because we do have all of those brands that are under the same roof, and we have the opportunity to have those units talk together. And you hear us talk about, one boat network. And to some people that means a lot, to other people it means nothing. But the bottom line is that with the one boat network, you have the opportunity to talk to your trolling motor. You have the opportunity to talk to your downrigger. You can see what your engine is going to, instead of just displaying it on your speedometer or your RPM gauge or what have you, have the opportunity to see it all on your unit. And the deal is that you ask the question about what's the difference between a Helix and a Solix and an Apex, besides the difference in the cost, and that's what the units have the capability to do. So the Helix is a tried and true unit. The software, the architecture has been around for a long, long time. Those units are pretty much bulletproof, but there are things that most anglers, or a lot of anglers, would like to be able to do, have, or see that those units just simply can't do. So they, like, when you have them hooked up together, you can share some transducers, you can share some waypoints. You can't edit them. And you can't go back and look at something in history once it's dropped off. You know how when you go over and you hook up a fish, and just as you turn around and glance back at the sonar, you see it going off of your Helix unit, and you're like, man, well, you can go back and find it again and mark it, but you have to find it again before you can mark it because it's gone. But with the Solix, I can wipe the screen back just like I can do with my cell phone, to the point where it was, whatever it was, a school of fish, some sort of structure that was holding bait and fish or what have you, and I can just touch and hold my finger on it and drop a waypoint, and I can set it up to mark and edit so that when it comes up, I can literally type in on a QWERTY keyboard on the Solix the name that I want to give that particular waypoint. I can correct it. I can give it the icon that I want. I can give it a color that I want it. I can do all those things really, really, really easy, which I can't do on the Helix. Can I catch any more fish off of it than I can catch off of the Helix? Not necessarily. It just has to do with the way that I want to be able to use it. And as technology continues to grow, the Solix is definitely keeping up with the growing technology. Now you move to the Apex, and you have additional capabilities that you didn't even have on the Solix, like being able to do HDMI in, HDMI out. So if I'm a bigger boat and I want to be able to have a camera back in the salon or in the pit in the back, or I'm up top on a larger boat, or on a boat that has a cobia tower or what have you, and I want to be able to share the view up there without having to turn around all the time and look in the back of the boat, I have the capability to do that. If I want to use a really high-end transducer, like an Airmar B175 high wide and low, if I'm going to be in deeper water part of the time, I can do that. And it has a port on the back of the unit to be able to plug both transducers in, and I can literally duplex them, which means take the low and the high wide, or the low and the medium, and combine them together into one view, so that when I'm in that deeper water where down imaging and side imaging just simply don't work, I can have better target separation and definition. So there's a method to the madness, aside from the fact that the number of pixels in the apex is 2 times the number of pixels in the Solix. There are over 2 million pixels in the 13, 16, and 19 versus a little over 1 million in the Solix.
Wow. So yeah, like I said, I'm super pumped to have you on the show tonight because of all that information you just threw down on me there, because, I knew that there was some subtle differences there, and I'm looking at the Solix or the Apex. Obviously the Apex is a new to the game, and I've been looking at the Solix for a couple of years, but the ability to scroll back in time, the timeline, basically what you're going back in the Solix is a game changer for me. The Apex is a little thinner too, correct?
It is thinner. For those that want to have the thinner on the dash, it definitely is thinner. Yes, sir.
So I was, you hit the nail on the head when you're talking about the HDMI, and I understand why it's there now. Like, I was thinking, I guess you say it's in and out. So could you share that to like a flat screen if you were on a bigger boat to like expand your viewing capabilities?
I have guys up in the Northeast that have well watch boats, and they are waiting impatiently for the Apex to come out so that they can plug an HDMI into the back of the unit and let the people that are sightseeing for whales on those boats be able to see what the whales look like on the sonar on the monitors down in the salon.
Yeah, so that's super cool technology. And like I said, I'm a fish head, but I'm also a technology guy, so that goes hand in hand with me. And I see a lot of the stuff, and and like you're talking about the technology as it progresses from even the Helix, which again, I'm a Humminbird fan, so I think that they're far and above most of the other competitors. But even the lower end, and I'm using that as a technical term, as far as what you can pick up, you're getting a lot more technology than in most companies, in my opinion. And then when you bring in the price point of things, and everybody's like, well, the newer things always cost more. Well, that kind of comes with the territory, right? Because you got research and development. You got people that are out there trying to break these things. What can go wrong? Well, what did go wrong? Then you got to go back to the R&D phase where you're going to have to fix these things and figure out, make them as bulletproof as we've come to expect from the Humminbird line, which does come with some costs and stuff. But for what you're getting especially in the Solix and the Apex line, I don't think that, I think bang for the buck there is pretty well matched.
Well, think about this. Let's back way up, to the listeners that are viewing the show, and let's talk about some of the really simple things, because people, walk into a retail establishment and they'll make comments like, I don't really want GPS. I just want 2D sonar. And you're like, why? Why would you ever just want 2D sonar and not want GPS? Why would you not want to go back to the same place that you found these fish living? Why would you want to try to do what we used to do years ago, where you look at this dock and this dock over here, and you look at this telephone pole and you try to triangulate and find whatever it was that you were fishing on before, or get in that same area, when you can get in exactly that same area? Why would you only want to see underneath the boat in 2D when you could see underneath the boat in DI and verify what it was that you were seeing on 2D? And then to take it even a step farther, why would you not want to use side imaging and be able to see out to the side of the boat? And here are the things that people don't realize. They don't realize that 2D sonar for almost everybody is a 20-degree cone angle. And to keep that really simple, what that means is that you're seeing a third of the distance to the bottom at the bottom on your 2D view. So if I'm in 30 feet of water, I'm seeing 10 foot of bottom at the bottom. I'm seeing 5 foot halfway to the bottom, or at 15 feet. So that's less than the beam of most boats, especially bass boats. So if my transducer is a little bit to one side or the other of the motor, which it is, it's never on the keel. If it's on the port side, then I'm going to see cheated a little bit to the port side. If it's on the starboard side, I'm going to see a little bit cheated to the starboard side. But the bottom line is that I can use side imaging, and I can look out to the side of the boat 200 feet on both sides if that's what I wanted to look at. And I give the example when I'm doing seminars in a show, you know, it's typically in some sort of a you know, a big giant ballroom or something of that nature. And it's bigger than a football field on the inside. Sometimes it's almost as big as the ground part of the stadium. And I'll tell these people, you know, let's just imagine that this is the same depth as the ceiling is, which is typically a 30-foot ceiling. So in 30 feet, I'm seeing 10 feet of bottom. Think of how many times I had to go up and down just the football field to be able to canvas the bottom or that whole football field and tell where all the structure was on that football field. Yet with side imaging, I could make one pass right down the middle and see everything from side to side, from goalpost to goalpost, and mark everything in between and label it with the Solix and be able to go exactly back to it the next time that I wanted to go fishing. Or I saw a group of fish over to the left side and I was able to spin the boat around and get to those fish before they got away to be able to catch a fish. And at the end of the day, we all love to go fishing, but we really love to go catching.
Yeah, you're right. And you're talking about going back to the same spot and all the thing, which is for me is the whole point of having, you know, finding the fish is one thing, but building a knowledge base of why the fish are there, what holds the fish to those things, and you know, creating a better knowledge base for me as an angler is why high-end sonar and high-end head units like the, you know, the Humminbird, Solix, or Apex series when they come out intrigue me the most. And a lot of things that you get with this is that you have the Humminbird, the base map that comes with the actual unit. So you're going to get some base mapping features with, you know, on certain lakes. But if you go to a small lake or whatever around your area, Humminbird has a thing called Auto Chart Live, and all of your head units will save a small portion of the information. But if you want to save a lot more, you can pick up a card that will basically allow you to save that information to the card. But what Auto Chart Live does, in my opinion, as an angler, it doesn't matter if you're a tournament angler, if you're a crappie fisherman or whatever, it gives you the ability to map your, you know, contour map your local lakes that may not have any data on them. And you have the data that shows what your lake is actually, you know, you basically, it's almost like draining the lake and you see exactly what's under the lake and, you know, under the water. And I think that's a huge game changer. Well,
it's not just lakes. It actually, I have guys, I run the saltwater pro staff team. And the one of my guys, a guy named Mark Bennett, was introduced to Auto Chart Live in the Keys. I took a zero line SD card, which is what you were basically talking about. The units themselves have the capability to record 8 hours of data onto the memory on the unit itself. Once it's done that, it's like a dragon eating its tail. It starts dropping off the oldest and piling on the newest. Well, this zero line SD card, which retails for $99, you can put that zero line SD card in and you can literally record for like 27 years nonstop. Okay. So, but you don't need to do that. So I exposed Mark Bennett to this, and Mark Bennett is a big tarpon dude out of Boca Grande, Florida. I was in the Keys with him and I showed him this and I gave him a zero line SD card and I left and I went back to the airport in Miami. I flew back to Atlanta, and a week and a half or 2 weeks later, Mark Bennett calls me up and he's just all beside himself because the wind was blowing really hard. He couldn't go to where he wanted to go to. So he just decided to drop his skiff in and fish right by where he had a rented house just south of Miami as you start, onto the highway going into the Keys. And so Mark goes out there and he turns on the record and he starts recording this little area right by the bridge. And he was blown away with the information that he was getting, and he started to see tarpon in there. So now he understood why the tarpon were where the tarpon were, and he had the chart to verify why they were where they were and to be able to replicate and go back to it and have successes with it on subsequent trips. He got so fired up about that, he went back to Boca Grande 3 weeks later, and he has literally auto chart live the entire Boca Grande Pass. Now, there are charts out there, including our new Coastmaster, which we just launched for saltwater for that area, which is an incredible chart. If you're a saltwater guy, look up Coastmaster. It's hard. It's got so much light on it, you can't really see it. But what Coastmaster does is Coastmaster takes some of those same attributes that LakeMaster has and takes it over to the saltwater. So I can highlight contours. I can pick a band of contours to highlight. It shows high spots. It shows, canyons and all sorts of things like that. I shot a show with Justin Leak at Chasing the Sun, which is on Prime TV. You can go look up Chasing the Sun, and there's a couple of episodes on there that I've done with him where we took a Coastmaster chart and we went out into the ocean out of Panama City, and we literally just picked some waypoints that were on there that we put on that chart when we built it. It was all public data. And we only fished those public data waypoints, and we absolutely loaded the boat. And you'll see the cooler and you'll see the fish that we kept, because we literally did keep 7 and 8 pound mangrove snapper and mahi that we caught using that chart, and only fishing in places or at places that were showing up on that chart that were public numbers. I mean, basically, most of the states on in the saltwater, they build artificial reefs and they make that data available. Like, you can go to FWC, which is Florida Wildlife Commission, and you can get an entire laundry list of waypoints and they're actually divided up by county. And there may be 300 or 400 for each county or more. And instead of sitting there and putting them into your Humminbird unit, they're right here on this card, because we got every one that we could get and we put it on the chart and we made it available to the user. If you're a bass guy like you or some of the other guys, or you're a crappie, sac-a-lait, white perch, whatever you want to call it guy, or a catfish guy, there are chances that we have your lake and we've already done that for you, and we're giving you that data so that you can highlight wherever you're finding those fish. So you think about this. You go out into your little lake, whether it's an auto chart live or whether it's a chart that we make with LakeMaster, and you find all these brush piles and you mark all the brush piles. And then you go over the top of the brush pile with your 2D sonar and your down imaging, and you get an opportunity to look at the brush pile. And you know what fish look like when they're in the brush pile. You see the brush and you see something like spaghetti moving around on the brush pile. You know that there's something there that's alive, okay? And so you drop your Demiki rig or whatever it is down, and you catch that first fish, and you bring it up and you look at it. You look at your screen and you see that you're in a 20-foot brush pile, and they stop biting, and you go over to a 15-foot brush pile and you don't get bit. You go to a 30-foot brush pile and you don't get bit. You go back to another 20-foot brush pile and you get bit again. So now what do? Is you go in and you highlight your chart so that everything that's 20 feet plus or minus maybe a foot, so 19 feet to 21 feet, is green all the way around to all the humps and everything in that lake. And then you look at your waypoints that you shot and you go to the ones that are in the green because you eliminated everything else. And so the propensity for you to have way more success than the other anglers, whether it's a tournament or just a weekend fun, is huge.
Yep, I get that. And so that also plays in, correct me if I'm wrong here, that plays in with the iPilot link when you're talking about the Minn Kota trolling motors like the Ultrex, where you can pick those. Like last year, we were looking at some different deals where we were catching smallmouth on St. Clair in certain contour lines. And it's just like anything else, where we were staying on those contour lines and catching fish, and basically the trolling motor was doing all the work for us. But you talked about the LakeMaster there. First off, I got a couple questions here. Let's answer these really quick. Jacob Crappy says, curious as why Humminbird doesn't include screen covers with their units.
And some of the smaller units we don't, but the bigger units we do provide screen covers for those units. We provide those for the nines and above. All have screen covers. We may have some on the 8s. I don't remember. As I said, I'm saltwater, and I do not have not that Helix doesn't work in saltwater, because it does, but every single one of my pro staff guys uses Solix. And you heard me tell some of the reasons, some of the things that Solix does, and that's the reason why. But we do provide screen covers with the larger units. We just don't do it with the smaller units.
Yeah. So Michael Atkins says, what Humminbird car does he recommend? And so, Michael, I'll be the first to tell you that, there's a plethora. And obviously the biggest, in my opinion, the biggest thing is where you're going to be fishing. But one of the things that I've found this year as a bass angler or any other angler is that there is an app that Humminbird makes called the Fish Smart application, or the Fish Smart. And what I did personally is I bought the Southeastern states Lake Master card. And I did that because I had a lot of the states like Kentucky, Tennessee, a lot of those states that I'm fishing. Well, it doesn't have Ohio on there. So that would be the Great Lakes card. So the cool thing about that is that you can buy particular contour data from different lakes. Like if you're just going to go fish St. Clair, you can buy that contour data and have it on your unit, as well as using the Southeast states. Am I correct on that, Bill?
Yeah, well, the way that really works is that you could go buy a particular lake, and the size card that all of the units are going to accept is going to be 32 gigs. Well, 32 gig card, you can get a lot of data on. So I'll get a 32 gig card. I'll go and make the purchase of a lake, which a lake depends on the size of the lake. It could cost from 15 to maybe $30 or something like that. And then once you buy the lake, you have the ability to download it one time onto an SD card or onto a computer and put it on an SD card. So you encrypt the card in your unit, you buy it, you download the chart, you put the chart into onto your SD card, and now you want to protect it just like you do your Lake Master card, because you can put whatever the number of lakes that will fit based on the size onto that 32 gig card, and now that one card is yours to hold and keep. But the thing that's really cool about it is that once I've made that purchase, I also have the opportunity to use the Fish Smart app, and I can literally take on the Fish Smart app on the lakes that I have purchased, I can literally take that lake. I don't know if you can see this, but I can literally take that lake and put that lake onto my phone, and I can see it on my phone. So I could be standing there having a conversation with you or with another fisherman, and they could start suggesting to me some place that I would want to go look at, and you could literally pan around on my phone and drop waypoints on my phone, taking those waypoints back and putting them on to the Humminbird unit, which is really cool. It also has the opportunity on your larger units. I can connect my phone to my unit via Bluetooth, and once my phone gets connected to my unit, then I have the opportunity to be able to see, let's see. So here's a list of all of the stuff that's on my unit. I know it's hard for you to see this, but once it's connected, it has the serial numbers, it knows the MAC addresses, it knows what software versions are on each of my units, and if I have a issue with my unit, I have the opportunity to just touch the bottom and have customer service contact me instead of me calling the 800 number and waiting in a phone queue to talk to someone at the wrong time of the year or the day. If it's on a Monday, you might wait for an hour to be able to talk to someone, whereas you put yourself in the queue, your phone rings, you answer the phone, and the person's on the other end of the phone ready to answer your questions and help you.
Yeah, so that's the coolest thing. And I like Michael there a second ago said that he just found out about the app, and that's something that I'm just getting into. But another thing that I can see that helping is that like, for example, this weekend, my fishing tournament series, my fishing season starts this Sunday. I'm fishing a local club with some guys. I'm going to a lake I've never been to in my entire life. So having the ability to, and if the chart is available, obviously for that lake, I can pre-purchase that lake and basically break down that lake before I get there using the sonar and using the contour mapping and things like they've put on there as far as like those public fishing spots and things that they've already added to the knowledge base. So it basically allows me to have a head and shoulders advantage over the people that are like me, not ever fishing there again or have fished there before.
Absolutely, you can. You have the opportunity to basically pre-plan your fishing trip before you ever get there. And you can use a combination of the paper map and the app itself on the phone and drop waypoints onto it. It's actually pretty cool. And there are other features that are being added to it and will continue to be added to it as time goes on and that program becomes more robust.
Yeah, so Adam Barber says he has a couple of questions, so he split them up. First one, was the Helix the last of the core models?
I'm not sure what he means by that, other than the fact that it is the same operating system that was the 1199, the 999, the 997. All of that stuff started, and it's just a continuation of that same core product. Yes.
And his second question, are the post-Helix models touchscreen? I guess that means after the core model.
The only touchscreen units that we have are Solix and Apex. And they're not just touch, they're cross-touch. And what that means is I can do everything touch, or I can do everything buttons, or I can use any combination thereof. I don't have to turn on or turn off touch. I can use a combination. And I've gotten so used to doing it because I test software and other things. I use both. I may do touch on one thing and I may do a button on another thing just out of habit because I find it to be faster. But no, the Solix and the Apex are cross touch, which means they do have touch and they have the buttons. And then the Helix is just button.
Yeah, so that's one of the major deciding factors for me looking at the Solix line of things before this plethora of information that you've given me tonight, which really solidifies definitely looking into the Solix and the Apex series when they come out, obviously depending on what I can afford. But the ability to have the cross touch for me is a game changer, and it's a no-brainer. My 6-inch Humminbirds aren't touchscreen. I like the buttons and things, but on a bigger screen, especially like you're talking about on the Solix, being able to like scroll back and press and hold or touch, long press something to drop a waypoint is way more intuitive than going to the D-pad and scrolling over and trying to find it and hitting enter or whatever. So the ability for a touchscreen for me was definitely the reason I was looking at the Solix there. Jordan or Casey, I'm actually fishing the Lewis County Lunkers, man. It's open tournament, club tournaments, like $20 to get in, $20 for club dues, Sunday at Cave Run. Michael Adkins, if you have a card, can you use the app to transfer over to a card like a Lake Master card? So correct me if I'm wrong. I would imagine the Lake Master card is definitely encrypted. So I doubt you're going to be able to write any data to it unless it's from the head unit.
On the smaller units, you have the unit gives you the ability to save screen snapshots and that sort of thing on. We try to limit that because it also interjects the opportunity to corrupt a chart that you've paid for that's on that Lake Master card. So we definitely limit that.
Yeah, I get that. So Nick Schultz says, will my Helix accept this software? So I assume you're talking about the Fish Smart application.
Yeah, it's the Helix. It's the Fish Smart software doesn't actually go on the unit. The Fish Smart software is an app that goes on your phone. You can download it for Android. You can download it for the iPhone, and then you connect up your iPhone or your Android to your unit by going into the settings and turning on Bluetooth, connect my phone, and then you're going to turn on show notifications on your phone. And so you're not going to be able, like if you're out on the lake and your wife wants to send a message to you, she can send a message to you, and you can set it up so it'll pop up on the Humminbird unit, and you have to clear it. It can be a bubble or it can be a banner. Those are your two choices. And then from there, you can't answer it back. You're going to have to go dig your phone out of your dry box or whatever to be able to answer the message. But at least you get the message on your phone so you don't miss it while your phone's in some dry place, as opposed to in your pocket to fall into the bottom of the lake.
Yeah, so I get that. So one of the features that I've always thought about, and we've always talked about it with other anglers, is that, I fish alone sometimes, and the ability to let somebody know where I'm at should God forbid, an accident happen or something. If I could still reach my graph, I always thought it would be a really cool feature for me to be able to contact, emergency services that way, like a beacon almost.
Yeah, I mean, it may come to that eventually. While you think that's a neat idea, there are plenty of anglers out there that don't want anyone to know where they're at because they think someone's going to steal their fishing spot.
Yeah, I totally get that too. So, I run a YouTube fishing show, and I show some of my best spots and everybody is like, why do you do this? Like, it's, a lot of things, my idea for this is to teach people how to fish. And I'm no pro. I don't claim to be a pro, but my idea is going out and catching fish. And as well as I do, you can go out and smash fish on a certain bait at a certain place, and you can go back out the next day and never catch a fish on that same bait.
Right.
So it's a huge deal for me, and I like teaching how to people to fish. And I'm not a huge tournament angler. I fish some small club tournaments and some BFLs and things, but I always fish as a co-angler, so I'm not having to worry about that thing. So it's not. But I get what you're saying there. Michael has got a really good question. The one that I had over here written down is that a lot of the pros that I see that are using Humminbirds have either both a Solix and a Helix, or 9 times out of 10, they're just running like 12-inch Helix. Is there a reason for that?
Well, part of it is teaching the old dog new tricks. So the operating system for the Solix is different than the operating system for the Helix, and even though they have the capabilities to get to the same end for the most part, you don't always get to the same end the same way. So it just works different. You add to that the fact that the Helix is a solid unit. And I'm not saying that the Solix is not a good unit, because it is. I was using Solixes until I just got the Apexes and put the Apexes in my own vessel. But at the end of the day, all of the new Solixes, the Solixes now have a different chipset and have dual core processors, so they're way faster. And then the Apex, they actually have the same chipset as the Apex now, the Solix does. And I think you're going to see, with some of the new technologies that are coming in stream now, I think you're going to see more of those guys switch to Solix from the Helix, but time will tell.
Yeah. So talking about pros, one of my favorite stories that I've ever ran across with the Humminbird and stuff is when Polinick found Fighters units. And I was really like, if you grab a hold of these things, no matter what you're talking about, any kind of, head units or whatever from any manufacturers, they got some weight to them. I mean, they're sealed glass boxes with a lot of technology in there. I was super impressed that he had I think a Solix 10 and a 12 Helix on a mount, and they both floated, which was really cool.
Well, I had I had been working at Humminbird for maybe a couple of years. I don't think it was an 1199. I think it was prior to an 1199. I don't remember the exact model number, but it was a 10-inch unit. And my in-laws own a several hundred acre farm down in central Georgia. It's got a couple of ponds on it. And I was down fishing with my father-in-law in a little Tournament TX Crawdad ABX boat and a trolling motor. And we had my niece's little boy in the boat with us, who was maybe 5 years old or something. And I had the unit mounted on this metal deal and connected up to the battery. And it was sitting up on top of my tackle box. And the little boy's mom came down and said that it was time for him to come up and eat his lunch and take a nap. Oh, he went nuts. He didn't want to. He wanted to stay out with Uncle Bill and his pawpaw and fish. And he started jumping up and down. Well, when he did, the unit did a flip out of the boat and immediately disappeared into the abyss. The pond was a little bit muddy. It was about maybe 7 feet deep there, so it wasn't something that you could easily reach to even be able to find it. Not to mention the fact that I had nothing to market with. I mean, now I'm trying to do what I was talking about. The people were trying to do all the time, triangulating between this tree and that telephone post and this dock or tower or whatever, and I'm trying to find it. I immediately grab something with a big treble hook on it, like a Flexit spoon, and I start trying to comb the bottom with it with no luck. And so I have this epiphany that I could do it with a grapple hook. So I go and get a coat hanger and I cut it off, and I get another coat hanger and cut it off, and I make a little hook and I tie a piece of string onto it. And so I now got this hook that's about, maybe 10 inches from one side to the other side. And I start dragging it with the string and the trolling motor, and I hook on something and I pull it up. And just as I see it coming into view, I realize that it was the target. I accidentally let it tilt a little bit, and away it went again. Well, now I know exactly where it is. Okay. So I drop a float. So I go and I catch it again, and I get it up and I hold the string and I get it out of the water. And I mean, it's been in the water this was before lunch that it went in, and we're now almost to dark, and it's in the summertime. So it's probably been in there for like 8 hours. And I get this unit out, and I'm yelling to my father-in-law, who's making a contraption with a potato rake for me to try to find it. And he comes back down there as I'm going into the shore with the trolling motor. And I said, what's going to be crazy is when I plug this thing back into power and it works. I kid you not. I hooked it back up to the battery. I turned it on. The unit came on. It started working. Now, after about 3 or 4 minutes, it wigged out and it went off and it was gone. So it was done. But the bottom line is you remember when you used to turn them on, it made that little noise. I forget what it was like, but it was like a little bird noise or something. Yeah. Well, that little place that the noise came out of, where the speaker was, it had a Gore-Tex patch over it. And the Gore-Tex patch was actually designed to keep water out under X amount of pressure. And at the depth that it was in, it literally had only let a couple of drops of water get into that machine that caused the problem to the machine. So, all of the units today are typically going to be like IPX7, which means that they shouldn't get rain inside of them. You should be able to spray it with the water hose and not get water inside of it. You should be able to leave it on your boat outside and not have any problem from water intrusion into the units.
Yeah, so that's what's another amazing thing to me, is that you guys can pack so much electronic capability within these small, depending on what size you're looking at, these relatively small units, and still keep them as water resistant as they are. So you don't have to worry about, downpours or whatever. It's going to have your data there for you all given time. So got a fairly lengthy question here, and I can't even see the bottom of this, Adam. So you need to respond here. But it said, thank you. I had installed 2 Helix G2Ns and HD transducers on my previous boat with Navionics card and loved them. My current boat came with 2 Gen 3 HDS 9s on it, and I just can't get them figured out. Not a huge fan. What is your opinion on the quality/abilities of the built-in transducer on the Fortrex 112? And also, if I were to mount the Helix on or Solix on the bow, is there a jumper or adapter to use the HDS 9 and the Bird on the same transducer?
Well, first of all, I think what he's alluding to is he's talking about the US2 transducer, which is just a 2D transducer on the Fortrex. A lot of guys want to use the transducer either mounted, the external transducer mounted onto the bottom of the Fortrex, or they want to use the US2 because they want to be able to see what their target is directly underneath the trolling motor, and they want to mark that target to be able to go back to it. But the one thing that they're not thinking about, and I don't want to chase a rabbit here, but is where the GPS antenna is in the unit that the transducer is connected to. Because when the unit sees what the transducer is seeing, the place in space is where the GPS antenna is, which is typically internal to the unit that's mounted onto the boat, unless they have an external external GPS antenna. And if they have an external GPS antenna, where that GPS antenna is mounted is where it's marking that place in space. So if you're attacking that target, that stuff on the bottom from the east one time and you mark it, but then you're attacking it from the west another time and you're marking it with a GPS antenna that's on the back of the boat, you're the distance of the boat away from it one way one time and the other way the other time.
Yeah, makes sense.
But I don't know if I still answered his question because you took it off of the screen.
Oh, hold on a second here.
But you can, on the units, you can share transducer capabilities between like versions of units.
Yeah, so I think he's
as long as they're all networked together. So you would have to have the dongle on each one of the units, and then an Ethernet cable connecting between the units. And if it were more than just peer-to-peer or unit-to-unit, you would need a 5-port switch, which is like a hub, and you would have each unit plugged into that Ethernet switch. And that's the same not only with Helix, but that's the same with Solix and with Apex.
Yeah, so I think his question alludes to, can he connect, I assume, a Lowrance head unit and a Humminbird head unit to the same trolling motor transducer? I think that's part of his question.
No, we make an adapter for Humminbird. We make an adapter for Lowrance. We make an adapter for Garmin so that you can put that little adapter on. It's a little dongle that's, I don't know, it's maybe 12 or 14 inches long. And you would screw that onto the lead for the transducer coming out of the trolling motor. And then that would, the other end of it that would plug into the unit is the same fit as whatever brand unit that you're going to plug it into. So it doesn't come with multiple plugs. It only comes with one.
I got you. So another comment here is, it's kind of like the elephant in the room that everybody's talking about. When will the Mega Live imaging be available?
We just put it up onto our website. Let's see. I think it went up yesterday or Friday. I can't remember. It went up onto our website, and you'll start to see a lot of stuff coming out about it in the next few days.
Yeah, it's something I'm super pumped up about. Again, having the ability, the Mega 360 is a huge game changer in the way of finding new spots to fish and finding what cover you're fishing, in my opinion. So one of the coolest photos that you guys have captured, I don't know if it was somebody on the pro staff or somebody just out there that captured the 10-foot gator on the Mega 360. That's pretty amazing piece of photo equipment there.
Well, the thing that I want to point out to the listeners is that, you know, mega imaging is really cool, and mega imaging gives incredible clarity, but never underestimate, you know, the other frequencies as well, because the 455, because now the side imaging and the down imaging, we have figured out how to chirp those frequencies just like you chirp sonar on a high-end transducer. And because of that, the clarity of 455 frequency, which is really a spectrum, it's not 455, it's running basically 70 frequencies or whatever. You know, the clarity of what you see on those is absolutely incredible. And when you're in deeper water, you know, 455 frequency is going to be able to reach a lot deeper and a lot farther out than is mega imaging. When we first came out with side imaging, which we were the first company to launch recreational side imaging back in 2005, all the units came with 455. And so consequently, the units were defaulted to 455 at that particular time. Well, now the units are defaulted to mega imaging, but if you get a unit and you put a unit on your boat and it's this time of the year, it's in the winter time, and the fish have moved to deeper water, then mega imaging might not do the trick. If it's too dark, if you can't see what it was that you think is there, then change to 455 frequency and see if it doesn't let you see what you need to and want to see to be able to catch those fish on that particular day.
Yeah, so that makes sense a lot there. So Chirp, for those of you guys that don't know what that means, and I didn't until a few days ago, chirp is compressed high intensity radar pulse. So, and I was doing more research, and obviously I'm trying to, anytime that you're going to make a huge high-end purchase like this, in my opinion, as any brand that would be, whether that be, whoever or Humminbird, a lot of people are going to do research as myself. And I found this out, and correct me if I'm wrong, the chirp sonar basically, as you said, sweeps a frequency modulation width, right? So it's like basically from the information on their website, it's like turning the radio dial and tuning in a radio station on your car radio, and that's basically what it's doing, sweeping that frequency, correct?
It's almost like a police scanner or a VHF radio in the ocean. Instead of listening to channel 16 or what have you, just having it on so that it scans. And so that's what it's doing, is it's constantly scanning that entire bandwidth. And in doing so, it has the ability to give you the best view that you could possibly have and give you better target separation and target definition.
Yeah, so Donnie Copa says he has a Helix 9 Chirp GPS G2N head unit with an Ultrex built-in transducer. Will that built-in transducer work with the down imaging, or I guess that's probably side imaging head unit? Well, I don't imagine SO. I'd say that's supposed to be SI.
Well, we make with Ultrex, but he doesn't say which built-in. So in the Ultrex, we make 3 different versions of Ultrex with built-in transducer. We make one version, which is US2, which is 2D sonar. We make an MDI version, which is mega down imaging for the Ultrex. And then we make a MSI version with mega side imaging built into the unit. Obviously, all of the DI and the SI unit all have 2D sonar built into them, but they also have either down imaging, if it's the down imaging transducer, or if it's the MSI, it has down imaging, side imaging, and 2D sonar all built into the foot of the trolling motor.
So, Don, if you could let us know what one you have, we'd be able to give you a little bit more information about that, but that pretty much covers the whole thing. Nate Witt,
that it's only going to give 2D sonar if it's a US2.
So Nate Witt says, what cable do I need to run a through haul and a mega external transducer at the same time on my Solix? He has a Solix 15 Gen 2, I believe.
He's going to need a side imaging. Let me pull up the deal and I'll give you the exact part number. How's that?
That'll be great.
You're going to make me put on my cheaters here. Forms. It is a what was it? I'm sorry. What was the unit? A Solix?
Yeah, it's a Solix 15 Gen 2.
Okay, so he is going to need a 14M ID SIDBY. It is a part number 720111-1. It retails for $59.99. And what that does is it allows you to plug in. It's a splitter cable that is maybe 2 feet long, and what it has the ability to do is to plug your 2D transducer, that's the through-hole transducer, into one side of it, and then you plug your all-in-one into the back of it, and it gets your 2D from your either through-hole or shoot-through-the-hole, and then it gets your down imaging and your side imaging from the transducer that's on the back. And that's what you see a lot of times, where a guy will take a bass boat and he'll have a jack plate and he will mount the all-in-one transducer onto the jack plate, and then he'll put a shoot-through-the-hole transducer or a through-hole transducer into the boat, particularly a bass boat, because when a bass boat's going really fast, it's just sitting on the very back end of the bass boat, and you're trying to hold the bottom. At 70 miles an hour, you're not going to get a lot of heads up that you're about to hit something. But at the same time, it is nice to know occasionally what the depth is based on what the sonar says as opposed to what the chart says. But I will say this, the Lake Master chart is incredibly accurate.
Yeah. So that before, it's funny that you mentioned that at 70 mile an hour, you're right. You don't get much heads up, but it was one of those things like Kyle and I were running across Kentucky Lake a couple years ago in the fall, and they had dropped it down to winter pool. And, you said you fish there a lot. It's one of those lakes where you'll be in 50 foot of water and 5 foot and about 20 feet of lake space. And it's really unnerving to look at a through haul transducer and you're like 5 feet and you're running 70 mile an hour. And really at that point, you have no other choice than to just stand on it and hope you can come out the other side. Because if you come off pad, you're going to just wreck stuff.
Absolutely. And the Lake Master is really good. Is it absolutely perfect? It's not. But it is really, really, really good. And if you're going to err, err to the side of safety. So go in and set your shallow water safety contour, at maybe 5 feet or something like that. And then when you get into anywhere close to anything that's red, you know that you have to be cautious. So maybe instead of going 72 miles an hour, you slow down to 50. I don't know. But bottom line is that it definitely puts you on the right track for safety.
Yeah, so and that's the Lake Master for me. That's another one of the reasons is for safety reasons, especially on lakes that I've never been to. That's why I think the money is well spent on the cards and the Fish Smart app and the lakes that you're going to be fishing because of the safety features. For example, Cherokee Lake in Tennessee, I was able to fish there with my Shimano rep, Drew Sadler, a few months ago in October. And, he was running all that stuff, and it made me open my eyes to how dangerous a lake can actually really be by not having that in your arsenal, because we were running through stuff that looked like it was just a big open expanse of lake, but there was like literally a quarter mile in the middle of the lake that was like 2 foot deep all the way across it. And, not having the ability to at least know that that's there is, that's definitely something that I am interested in. The Lake Master definitely gives me the opportunity to, again, set those danger points. If I want to go like 5 foot or less and have that red in there, I can see visually on my graph where I need to stay away from.
Well, in the application, I think I mentioned a little bit about this before. So let me give a couple of tips for the listeners here, because I know our time's getting a little bit short. But, number one of the things that I get asked all the time, and this doesn't have anything to do with the chart itself, but I get asked all the time, what does a particular fish, how do I know a particular fish when I see a particular fish on my sonar? My recommendation to that angler is always, you catch a bass, you just had a hook in his lip, take a piece of fishing line and cut it off and make it like 6 feet long and tie a little loop on it and put it through the hole in the lip where you just hooked that fish, and tie it onto the cleat at the back, or just hold on to it at the front of the trolling motor and let it swim back and forth underneath the transducer, and look at what that fish that you just held in your hand is looking like on your sonar underneath your transducer, and it'll be a great learning experience. And if you have a unit that is a GPS unit, which means it'll take an SD card, then that means that you can drop a screen snapshot on it. So take a screen snapshot or 2 or 3 or 10 or 20 or whatever of that particular fish, and now you can go back and look at it on your computer later on when you're back, and you can look at the picture on your phone and you can see what this fish that I caught looks like on my unit. So if you're a guy that's out there fishing and you're fishing a U.S. Army Corps of Engineers impoundment or a state water impoundment, most of the time what those guys have to do is they had to clean up what is determined to be navigable water. And that navigable water is typically going to be down to the 100-year drought mark. So like Lake Lanier, the elevation of Lake Lanier is 1071. And the navigable water is about 35 feet below full pool. And so what they did when they were backing the lake up is they go around with barges and they cut off all the timber with guys on chainsaws on the barges as the lake's filling up when it starts to get close to that 100-year pool. So in some areas, they're cut off maybe just a little bit above the 100-year pool, and others they're cut off below the 100-year pool. So bottom line is 35 feet. Well, if you project out 35 feet from different places, you're going to find all kinds of brush piles that are made with somebody with a bow saw in the middle of the night who's fishing tournaments or what have you, right? Or rock piles. So now what I do is, because I know the 35 feet, I can go in and set a highlight of 35 feet, and I can turn on my side imaging, and I can pick just looking toward the shore or the shallow area if it's a hump in the middle of the lake. And I can only look at that side, because if I'm using the whole screen and I have X number of pixels, going across the screen from left to right, if I change my sonar unit to only look at right because the shore's toward right, everything is twice as big because it changes the aspect ratio. So now what I do is I just use my chart on a unit and I follow that 35-foot contour line looking back toward the shore, and everything that I see that makes a shadow that's big, I just move my cursor over. If I have a Solix, I just touch it with my finger and hold my finger on it and drop a waypoint, exit. Drop a waypoint, exit, drop a waypoint, exit. Then I can go back to those waypoints after I've done this whole area of this cove or what have you, and I can look at those brush piles and see if there are any fish in those brush piles. And now I've just done a whole lot of work really quick to put me in a position to possibly win a tournament or to bring fish home in the live well so that I can have fish for dinner.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So, guys, we're at that 1 hour mark. You guys know I like to keep it down, and we don't want to take up any more of Bill's time. He's a busy guy. He's headed out to Lake Hartwell for a bass or a college tournament here very soon. But if you guys have any more questions you want to ask the man himself, go ahead and drop those in there. We'll give it a few minutes here. But, Bill, first and foremost, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to school us on the Humminbird and Minn Kota products. And you've definitely helped me make a decision for myself, is that, I'm definitely going to go with the Solix, and, depending on how much dough I have to spend or what I want to do, I'm looking at the Apex as well. And one of the last questions I have for you is, I noticed that the Apex has a Ethernet port on there. And it says that in the, I'm pretty sure in the specs that you don't need an external hub to network those. Is that true? Can you just plug an Ethernet cable?
Well, that depends. So what happens is that the Solix has an Ethernet port on it as well. The Apex has 2 Ethernet ports. So if I had 2 Apex units and I had a trolling motor with iPilot Link on it and I had a radar, I could connect those 2 units together. I could connect the radar to one of the ports on one of the units, and I could connect the trolling motor to one of the ports on the other units. Now I've just used 4 ports, and I didn't need a 5-port switch, yet I have my radar connected to my network, and I have my trolling motor connected to my network to give me a one-boat network without ever having a 5-port switch.
Yeah, so that makes makes a lot of sense to me. Like I said, I'm a technology guy. I just thought it was, really cool that I could, take my networking equipment, make up an Ethernet cable and connect those, which is really cool. Got everybody thanking you here. Eric McLaughlin, hey guys, how you guys doing? David Howard said thanks for all the information. Adam Barber said thank you both, great show and great info. And I agree, man. I appreciate your time. Again, you've given me an hour of your time, and you've helped me make a decision of what I'm going to do. You've helped some of my viewers out, which is basically the main reason there that I asked you to be on here. Guys, if you guys want to see Bill in action, you can go out and check out an episode of Chasing the Sun on YouTube. And it was one of their most recent. It was really cool because I was watching the Pursuit channel, it was like a Sunday morning deal. I was watching it, and I was like, wow, it's Bill Carson. What's up? I was looking at it, and they went out and caught the what was the snapper? What was it? The Grand Slam? Yeah, the Grand Slam. So it's it's a very good show. You guys can check it out. You see them using some Humminbird stuff on there to go to these spots that he's talking about, public spots to catch some fish. So, guys, it looks like everybody is all out of questions, so we will call it a night for just a second. Bill, if you just hang out for just a second, we'll close the show and give me just a second to talk to you. Guys, again, thank you for joining the show. If you guys are just now joining us, this thing will be obviously on YouTube and Facebook for the entirety that it is there, so go back. There's so much information in this show that you're definitely going to pick out. We covered a lot of things, or Bill covered a lot of things that created a lot of certainty for me what I want to choose, and I'm sure he'll do the same for you if you just now are joining us. So go back there and check it out. And again, if you guys want to go over and get to be a part of the giveaway that I'm doing on my page for the 2,500 subscriber mark the other day, I appreciate it. Go over there. No purchase necessary. You can enter once a day by going over and checking out one of my show sponsors, JB's Fish Sauce. Go to their link every day. You'll get a new entry. 3 total winners will be actually picked randomly in 5 days from now. So go ahead and do that. Share it up if you wish. And as always, guys, as I like to say, if you guys can, get out there and lean on them. We'll see you next time on Another Line.